So yes, I was introducing Dekia. So her and Jason will give you guys some information about their experiences in running Jake's and the sustainability program they have there, looking again at scalable solutions that can be applicable to enhance responsible tourism and interesting financing opportunities that they've had over the next 5 minutes. And then we'll introduce our last final speaker, Nellie Gideon, who will get into once Jason and Dekia have concluded their presentation. Jason, the floor is open to you.
Okay, good afternoon, and thank you very much for having both Diak and myself on. I want to commend my colleague from Jade Mountain. I've been lucky enough, privileged enough to stay in that beautiful resort. And you could almost say that it's the world's largest flat screen TV, with that like no wall in the front and the view of the pitons. It's really incredible. I want to commend him for what he's doing and their entire team. It's truly a magical place. I got a little bit jealous, however, when he says he was able to harness all the rainwater coming through the river, because the truth of the matter is where we operate in Jamaica is one of the driest, drought-stricken areas in southwest St. Elizabeth, known as the Pedro Plains, and more, locally Treasure Beach. So our main challenge is water supply. And for generations, our farmers had to develop and improve a technique of farming called mulch farming or dry farming. And ironically, they have done such a great job that it is the breadbasket of Jamaica. So most of the vegetables, the seasonings, everything, for instance, that goes into jerk seasoning, the scallion, the onion, the thyme, the ginger, the peppers come from this region. So it's where you let the Seymour grass grow to about 6 feet tall. You cut it, you mulch, you plow the land, and you put the grass back over as a carpet, as a protection with drip irrigation. So that speaks to the resilience of the people, the farmers, of which are about 75,000 farmers in this parish, in this region. We are working on a massive project of harnessing water from Black River, which is the largest navigable river in the country, but it's 16 miles away. So to harness that water with alternative energy, which would be available on the Santa Cruz Mountains, and of which there are 14 mega wind turbines there now with a company called BMR, Blue Mountain Renewables. That project is a $180 million project. So it's a large project. It's one that we are supporting, that we're very involved with, and it's something we're hoping to see start in the next, say, 24 months. My journey in Treasure Beach, our journey goes back a far way. My grandfather built a cottage here in 1941. So my children are fourth generation enjoying Treasure Beach. We have 75 rooms. We have 150 employees. In terms of our sustainability, we have photovoltaic panels. We have all of our hot water is hot water heated. We do have low energy air conditionings. We encourage our guests to get involved in our foundation, which is called BREADS, the Treasure Beach Foundation. And we manage a fishing sanctuary called Galleon Beach Fishing Sanctuary. We also take persons on farm tours. We're very involved in education. We started a program called EduSport, which is game-based learning. And that has now expanded to serve 37,000 students across 225 schools. We're also very involved in skills training. We do a lot of work in housekeeping and food and beverage in particular. We were very involved in keeping the density in Treasure Beach to be the lowest in the country. So to have to do that, I chaired the Parish Development Committee for 12 years. I also got appointed to the Town and Country Planning Authority in Kingston. And we secured funding to do a sustainable development plan for Treasure Beach. which we were able to leverage to do a sustainable development plan for the parish. I'm looking at the natural assets available to us and the limited resources. And then that updated the parish development order, which is what guides development. And what we were able to do is we were able to rezone a significant tens of thousands of acres of land to be zoned as conservation. We were able to strengthen our zoning around the agricultural lands, and then the lands that were remained for development, we zone them as low density. So it's 30 rooms per acre, which is the lowest in the country. There was some pushback because our Prime Minister wants growth. He wants development to happen at a rapid rate. And we appreciate that for other areas of Jamaica. But for our area, we want it to be known as the home of community tourism and sustainable travel. So, you know, we had to push back on that, and they had to have a lot of community meetings to ratify that. And we're really, really proud of being able to say that we're the lowest density in the country. And again, that was based on our scarce resources, particularly of water.
Yeah.
But I'd like to bring Diaka in here so that she can tell you her part of being a stakeholder in Treasure Beach.
Yes, excellent. And just before Diaka, before you comment and before we hear from you, I just want to commend you, Jason, and the work you guys have done. Everyone, responsible tourism is great when it's shared within your organization, but you know, reaching out into the community and just having that large sustainable development opportunity to have that low density, I mean, that's true, really responsible tourism from a planning and a early, you know, ideation kind of situation versus just only focusing on operations. So thank you for sharing that. And I think I'm Diaka. Is now. Please do share with us some insights from working with Jason and just your own you know, experience in responsible travel and how we're able to take those opportunities and scale them.
Sure, and I want to talk a little bit about the financing too, which I think you wanted us to mention. And Jason did such a great job telling you all about our challenges in Treasure Beach. I just would want to add that we have done a climate change adaptation project. It was funded through PPCR, which, as you know, is the multilateral funded IDB and so forth. I was spending time there working with the teachers, and it was raining more than it usually is. And we are our farmers and the community is very used to drought. The rain is giving them a bit of a hard time. So, and that's for a number of reasons. So we did a project to look at the area scientifically and come up with recommendations. And that involved a lot of dialogue with the stakeholders in the communities. So the residents, it's a fishing, farming, coastal community. So the residents, longstanding residents, plus stakeholders in tourism and so forth, and also officials. Out of that, we were able to identify what were ways that we could do as individuals, things we could do as individuals, things that we could do as a community, and things that we really needed the government to help us with. So as you know, with vulnerability and adaptation, there's only so much, even if people are willing, there's only so much that they can do on their own, right? And so one of those, as Jason mentioned, is the water. There's nothing that we can do. We can conserve as much as possible, but we absolutely need help for the water because it's an infrastructure issue, and also the cost of it. So one of the things I wanted to mention is that it's very interesting to have very engaged stakeholders and residents, which is what we have. We've come out publicly and said we really want to be, you know, at the forefront of sustainability. People are very interested in that. But financing is really a challenge. So we will apply for grants. Various organizations, we're lucky, we have several organizations working in Treasure Beach. Breads is the longest, I think, longest running. But there are others. There's a women's group. There's mine that focuses on sustainability also. But you know how that works. So you apply for a grant, but then it's not long lasting, but you need to have training for people. And that's more of a longer term framework. So very excited for a conference like this to kind of, for us as a community to have a voice to say that, you know, in the bottom line, we're very willing and we really want to do it, but we really need some help. And obviously we need more sustainable and longer lasting financing options to do so. We're doing the best that we can with the sources that are available, but anything more long term will really help us to work on sustainability, you know? So that's kind of just what I wanted to say.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. That's wonderful. And last but not least, because I know we're running short on time and I don't want to cut her off because this is an amazing panelist who I'm dying to hear from, Nellie Gideon. She shares my passion as an avid traveler. She's a serial entrepreneur, 30 plus years in the game. She understands the impacts firsthand of what climate change can do to communities. And she's created an amazing proprietary calculator that will help to calculate our carbon footprint and efficiency for destinations and travelers. Nellie, please, without further ado, we would love to hear from you. And then everyone else who is in the session, please do have your questions ready for discussion. Nellie, I will turn it over to you. You're still on mute, Nellie.
Sorry about that. Well, thank you. I'm very happy to be here. But before I begin, I'd like to take a moment to express my condolences to my fellow Haitians who have suffered a major loss overnight. So especially those Haitians living in the country, they are mostly impacted, I'm sure, for what happened. So my condolences to the Haitians. But there's been a lot said about the need for alternative financing for biodiversity preservation and management in the Caribbean, and of course, sustainability, etc. So, but climate change, addressing climate change is the responsibility of all. In the Caribbean and much in other parts of the world, governments are doing their part in moving towards sustainability. Property, travel operators, destination managers, they are doing their part. The missing piece really is the traveler. And we know the Caribbean is a major destination for tourists. Anybody who's looking for nice sun and nice beaches, they head to the Caribbean. So we have come up with a way to engage the traveler. And in doing that, the traveler can help support and contribute to the work that needs to be done. You know, we've heard earlier about resiliency work. We've heard about biodiversity, all sort of climate related issues. So that's what we have. We've come up with a platform that encourages sustainability by hotels and hoteliers, but also we have this carbon footprint calculating engine that uses actual data from hotels, not the average that you would get throughout the internet, to calculate the hotel's carbon footprint. And also, well, the traveler would calculate the carbon footprint of their stay, as well as the transportation if they choose to. When I say transportation, I mean the airlines, and if they take a car from the airport, they can add that, and then they offset their stay. So one way we're working actually with St. Lucia to develop carbon footprint, carbon offset projects in St. Lucia, and we're also talking to other governments throughout the Caribbean, well, other groups throughout the Caribbean to do the same, to offset local, to have local carbon offset projects so that when travelers come to those destinations, they can offset the carbon footprint of their trip using those carbon offset projects. And what that does is, well, it not only reduces the carbon footprint that goes into, the carbon that gets into the atmosphere, but it also there are some co-benefits. It employment, education in those local areas. So the idea really is to develop a carbon offset market in the region using carbon offset projects that are in those localities so that when travelers come to the destinations, they can use those projects to offset their carbon footprint. And we have a financial model that where the hotels or any other partners, if we're working with a tourism board, they can benefit from the financial proceeds that come out of the sales of those carbon offset projects. And in addition to offsetting carbon, and I have to say with much encouragement from Carolyn Trubowski, I hope I'm not butchering her name.
Trubetskoy.
Trubetskoy, thank you. Trubetskoy. With much encouragement from her, we accelerated our plans to expand that idea to include projects that are not necessarily of carbon offset nature, but are good for the environment or have economic value. So if I have the opportunity, I could share very quickly a couple of slides showing how our carbon footprint calculating engine works, if that's okay.
I don't see any objections. We still have a couple more minutes before we head into discussion, but I will yield to anyone who is on the call from the organizers. Are we okay with time? I believe we are.
Okay, I'll do that very quickly. So the way our carbon footprint calculating engine works, we have a white label widget that is placed in the hotel's website so that the traveler, in offsetting their carbon footprint, they don't leave the hotel's website. The widget has the look and feel of the hotel's website. So it's very transparent to the traveler. So they put in information about their stay, they choose the room, the type of room that they choose, the number of nights that they stay, and the number of people they have in their party. And then they have the option to either offset their stay, which is really the hotel only, or do both the hotel and their transportation. So let me go to the next. Okay, I'm having a little problem here trying to get to the next, okay. I'm not getting to the next.
That's not a problem, but
to the next. Okay, so you know what? I'm gonna stop sharing, and then I'll get to the. Let me share again to the next.
And while we're waiting for that, I just want to ask a quick question to Carl and to Jason. Have you guys moved forward with? I know that Dekia mentioned that you were already looking at developing your climate vulnerability adaptation assessment for you, Jason. You know, how are you guys looking at carbon footprint? Are you guys calculating anything right now or moving forward with that?
Well, we're looking for a model to do that. So I'm very, very interested in what our current presenter taking notes. I need Nelly's contact information like ASAP.
Oh, but, excellent.
And Carl, how about you really quickly before Nelly moves forward?
Sure. Yeah, we've looked into that to a great extent, and actually our model, given that we're surrounded by 600 acres of coastal rainforest that we preserve, we're somewhat net zero, if not a carbon sink already, but that doesn't mean there's not opportunities to embrace renewable energy, which is our next big goal and opportunity that requires financing.
I think you guys should just be a carbon offset project, period, and people should just, you know, invest in the amazing things that you have already at the property.
Yeah,
it just makes sense.
At Jake's, we're very privileged in that we oversee over 1,000 acres of conservation lands directly, because the fishing sanctuary is 625 acres. and the Lover's Leap protected forestry area below Lover's Leap is 475 acres. And then, of course, we also are very close to the Black River of Upper and Lower Morass, which is the largest protected area under the Ramsar Convention in the English-speaking Caribbean. So, you know, we thankfully sit on a massive land bank of conservation land, which we feel incredibly privileged about.
I've always said it. I mean, in my work and working with so many different hotels and tourism destinations to help them reduce their carbon footprint and move forward from a carbon neutral to a climate positive opportunity, it's like we should have these projects in the Caribbean. We should be the ones who have the offset projects for people to invest into and not investing in carbon offsets somewhere out, you know, in Europe or farther away. So I completely agree with what's happening here. And Nelly, I will go back to you to continue since you have your slide up and running.
All right, okay, thank you. And yes, so the traveler would calculate the carbon footprint of their stay and add the transportation if they choose to do so. What we do is we provide some contextualization, because if you tell a traveler that, well, your stay really put 15 tons of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, it probably doesn't mean anything to them. So we provide some contextualization in terms of the number of plastic bottles that's equivalent to, or plastic straws, number of towels washed, etc., to make it easier for the traveler to understand. And to the right here, there's a list of carbon offset projects. Right now, we're using UNFCCC carbon offset projects that are in other parts of the world, but we're working with groups in the Caribbean to have those projects within the Caribbean. And then from there, they go on, they pay, they receive a beautiful certificate saying, hey, you've done something really good for the environment. So we're thinking that would be a good way to bring some additional revenues to address some of the issues that the Caribbean countries are facing. And in fact, really, this is one area that needs to be preserved for all of us. You don't need to be from the Caribbean to see the value and the need to preserve that area of the world. So I'm going to stop sharing.
No, excellent. Thank you to all of our panelists and all this amazing information. We're going to go ahead and get started in the discussion portion of this. We have about maybe just a little over about 20 minutes or so. I'm going to check in the chat box to see if we have any questions here. I'm not seeing any just yet, but don't be shy, everyone. I know you guys have burning questions, but not to worry. I'm going to ask Carl a quick question about, you know, scalability in terms of what he had at Jade Mountain, and then also what you guys currently have. How did you finance it? Was it all private? Did you raise any funds to get a lot of those? I know it was designed that way, but for others who are in awe of, you know, Jade Mountain, how did it come to be?
Right. You're quite right. I think we have many advantages because Jade, from concept, sought to provide a sustainable model, but we are open to being emulated, not directly copied. But we have best practices that we're very, very comfortable sharing. And I think there are opportunities from anybody's model who's really pursued an integral sustainable pathway to the operations and the development of their property. What we need is that open comfort to be able to share openly with each other. There are many things we do that are proprietary and ours, and those are the marketplace differentiation, if you like. But the great things that are universally applicable to others, we're free and we're open with our sharing and our ideas. Actually, within the SLHGA, I also chair their environmental committee. We established a best practice booklet, which is a free share on the SLHGA website, which encapsulates a lot of these really good ideas in a really easy read format, and can provide inspiration for people who are struggling to identify what the opportunities may be for their property.
Excellent. I think that's brilliant. I think that's wonderful because we always
I'll
want to
put a link
understand
to
where
it
to
in the
start.
chat box. Sure, I'll put a link to that best share in the chat box. Our biggest challenge at the moment, and it's really a solution thing, we want to go the next step. We want to do utility scale renewable energy. Sadly, within the current legislative framework that the Utility Regulatory Commission works with, we're not able to do anything greater than 25 kilowatts, which is kind of so small, there's almost disinterest. So our funding needs, when we were looking to do greater scale, we were really challenged in finding good green funding mechanisms, and that's what I'm hopeful that this whole looking at financing and how to move forward can benefit very large projects as well as little micro projects. It seems to be easy to fund up to $200,000 or $300,000 US, but when your reach is greater than that, you start to get more challenges. But there's a lot to share. I'll drop the link to the best practice handbook in the chat box now.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Carl. This question is for Nelly. Let me just move up a little bit. I believe it's from Karen. Thanks, Karen, for your question. Is this calculator something that can be used with local communities, and can it be accessed for a fee? Can it be used not just on a destination, on a hotel level, but on a destination level, I guess?
Yeah, actually, we have a carbon footprint calculator for transportation only on our website. So because that looks at different types of vehicles, based on fuel and size, etc., that people can use to calculate the transportation piece. The hotel piece, however, it has to be associated with a specific hotel, because we use specific actual data in terms of doing the carbon footprint calculation for the data. So that is not possible to have it in like for a community, but that's a system that is that's evolving over time. So we are looking to put other areas of tourism as well. When I say other areas, I mean a restaurant, because you go eat at a restaurant, there's a carbon footprint associated with it. For tour companies, you go on a tour, there's a carbon footprint associated with it. So we're looking to expand it to that. But for now, we have the hotel calculation.
Hi, good afternoon. Could I ask a quick follow-up? This is Karen.
Hi, Karen, sure.
Yes, I just wanted to ask, good afternoon, everyone, whether the calculator itself can be accessed by any fund, for example, and put on that fund site and using local offset projects. I think we have been working on offsetting here at the Bahamas Protected Area Fund, and we were having a time trying to get a calculator that could allow us to offset using local projects. I think that's where we are interested, and we're wondering if that's something you can do.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing with our carbon footprint calculating engine. We're working with hotels. Actually, we have it on some hotels. We have a hotel in Curacao that has the carbon footprint calculating engine on its website. There's one in Madrid. So yes, the carbon footprint calculator. Yes.
Could you leave your contacts in the chat? I'd love that. Thank you.
Okay. Perfect. Nelly, all of our panelists, please do make sure to share your contact information in the chat. So if anyone else has questions that they may be shy to ask, or maybe we run out of time, they can reach out to you directly. I have another question. This is from Christopher. He wants to understand, how important is focused action on waste and the circular economy to enabling sustainable and responsible tourism? Is anyone here focused on waste and the circular economy?
I could kind of jump in and try to answer that. One of the other hats I wear, I'm on the board of directors for solid waste in St. Lucia as well. It's a great challenge, but there are huge opportunities as always. I think one of our greatest challenges in this environment is that we're plagued with packaging and other waste factors that are not of our making. I think as individual islands, we struggle to make an impact on supply chains to change that. But if, again, we have a unified approach through some type of body, whether it's CARICOM or some other unifying umbrella, once we get to be of a certain size collectively, then we can start influencing the real change agents of things like a sustainable purchasing policy. And even a greater reach would be to work with individual companies to have an extended producer responsibility. An example of that, when I used to buy toothpaste, it was a tube of toothpaste. That's all I bought. That's all that was on the shelf. Now it's in a box. Now that box has plastic around it. So that toothpaste is designed to be sold in a marketplace where there's extra suspicion about product tampering, and therefore all the additional packaging layers are wrapped around it. If that's not our concern, we don't need it. But we're burdened by supply chains that feeds and are designed for other territories to manage the waste from. So collectively, we have more clout. If we gathered together and had some policies written in, we could actually work towards extended producer responsibilities where a producer could not supply to this destination market something that's packaged in materials that cannot be managed within our environments. That's one big opportunity that we could get around.
I agree, Carl. I agree. And even when we're talking about the switch to eliminate plastic and, going for the alternatives of the fiber and the PLA line, and most of those, and even biodegradable products, most of those are only biodegradable, will only work in commercial composting facilities, which a lot of islands do not have the capacity or do not currently have those in place. So we're buying and we're bringing in all of these great items that are supposed to be good for us and much better as an alternative to plastic. But unfortunately, when we look at the end use, which is a great point of noticing that circular economy, thank you, Christopher, for bringing that up, is we need to also buy sustainably, but also recognize what is the end use of that product and how is that waste going to break down, so that we can also have that, again, that solid waste management solution on the back end. And we need to look at it as a full, as it's mentioned, circular economy. So that just breaks it down in total. And supply chain and vendor management is growing in terms of its interest and response all throughout globally, actually, as one of those big things. It's the number 12 SDG. I think it's behind you, Carl. I see it up on your wall. As we look to, as a nation, as Caribbean, and also globally, to reduce a lot of these negative impacts we have on our environment and to meet these overall sustainable development goals. So I think it's wonderful. We do have another question. I'm going to give this one to Jason. How can actors in civil society and community build and sustain meaningful partnerships to scale the actions on responsible tourism? And he also has a follow-up in terms of the academic community to be more engaged in deploying scalable actions. Jason, I think this is right up your alley, as you mentioned, the amazing nonprofit that you have that focuses on, I think it was education and sports as a means to build sustainability. I think that's brilliant. Please do let us know, how do you make these meaningful partnerships help to scale actionable, responsible tourism? Yeah, so as leaders in sustainable travel, I think, we have access to a tremendous amount of information, and it's changing all the time. It's so incredibly dynamic. But the power of collaboration is so important, to be able to share best practices, share ideas in terms of how do we empower our teams to basically understand that we have one life, we have one planet, everything is connected. We need to work together. So as an example, Treasure Beach, when you're driving into Treasure Beach, we know it's a fishing village. We have these big, massive fish. It's like a huge angel fish made out of fish mesh. And that's where we do all our recycling. So we have about 12 of them throughout the community. And that's where people take their plastics. And then it's taken to a central place. And it's picked up by Recycling Partners of Jamaica. What we do is we all coordinate behind the school so that the school gets the benefit of the returned plastic, right? So in my mind, it's like, how do we use our reach? How do we connect with our audience of visitors? How do we inspire them? Going back to what
Nellie's calculator, right? Instead of someone feeling bad about how much carbon footprint they're going to potentially, create with bringing a family of 6 from Europe, how can we turn that on its head and say, oh well, if this is the destination you're going to, these are the opportunities that you can engage in to lower that carbon footprint, right? So turning that around a little bit to say, here are some opportunities that you can engage in, and particularly with families, because you want to teach as a father, you want to teach your kids from they're young, right? That being able to travel, quite frankly, is a privilege, right? Many people in the world can't travel. They've never left their communities. And to say, when we travel, we have a moral obligation to try and have some type of positive impact in that community. It could be literally going to the local school and reading for half an hour, right? It could be going to the fishing sanctuary that is close by, making a donation. It could be, going, it could be going fishing with a local fisherman, and speaking about sustainable fishing. But it's all about how do we use our reach, our knowledge, in a way that is cohesive, is empowering, is not meant to intimidate, local persons who haven't traveled, who work for us and interact with these persons. How can we build their capacity and their awareness, and to say, let's do this together. We have a real opportunity here to, have a different pathway, because I agree with what Carl said, that thing of the toothpaste was a very powerful analogy. It really was. So how do we empower our communities, our teams, our employees, our travelers? And also, how can we push back on our supply chain to say, yeah, okay, you have the ability to recycle this type of packaging in your country, but quite frankly, we don't, right? We're dealing with landfills and right. So, one of the things that happens at Jake's on a very micro level is we have extremely low waste of food, because almost every one of our employees, they raise some type of livestock. It could be chickens, pigs, goats, cows, right? So all of the scraps from the restaurants, go towards that, and then we buy chickens and goats and pigs and back from our employees. So it's cyclical, right? But I think the big thing is collaboration. I learned a lot today just in the last hour of being a part of this conference, and it's a sharing ideas, and just keep knowing that we're in a dynamic space, and that the traveler wants an opportunity to engage and to do the right thing. For the most part, I think they do. Yeah.
I agree. Thank you, Jason, for that analogy. Now, daycare.
Yes.
Am I pronouncing it right? I feel like I've been saying it different.
That's all right. Used to it. That's fine. I just wanted to quickly to just add on to where Jason left. It's part of how you position yourself as a destination. Too, because Treasure Beach is known for a fishing, farming community, residents. So, environment is a way of life here. The people live off the land and the sea. So we have visitors who come who are very interested in that, who are very interested in the people, interested in the sustainability. And we have an opportunity really to educate and explain to people, because we can show them things about coastal erosion. They can actually see while they're having fun that this is the reality of what the challenges that people face. So it comes back to that education and that making that connection in a way that is familiar to people. I just wanted to touch on the academic community. I am an honorary research fellow at the University of the West Indies in the Institute of Sustainable Development. Real life activities and experiences. So Jason at Jake's and others, and talking with residents is a very important part of the way that we do our research and projects that we're doing. So, and we're actually now, we've now developed an MOU with a Missouri state to look at sustainable communities. They've had a long-standing relationship with Treasure Beach. It's now moved from just Treasure Beach to a relationship between the two universities. And we are going to be looking at sustainable development, of which, of course, tourism, given its importance in the community, will be a major feature of that.
Thank you so much, Diaka.
Yeah,
Wrote it down. So I knew it. I actually had a question for you, Diaka, and I just want to make a quick comment on the importance of capacity building. Jason, you mentioned it earlier, and I think it's key. Skills and capacity building are really what helps to create and build these resilient communities that we're all focused on making sure we have in and around not just our hotels and in our tourism development, but in our communities and things there. So I always love to say kudos to those who take a step back and say, listen, how are we doing this? And also sharing that information, not only for people to understand, but to empower and to encourage others to see that they are part of the solution as well. So kudos to that capacity building. But a little bit switching gears on the finance area, Diaka, the grants, you mentioned that you guys were able to get a grant for some of the support in terms of the financing. How difficult was that process? I think that's something that we would love to understand. And should they be more accessible? What were the challenges of some of those issues? Because I find that a lot of times there are so much grants and money and everything out there, but we just don't know, number one, how to access it. And then number two, the process is so tedious. Could you just give us some insight into that application process and how you came about it and how you were successful?
Sure, and Jason can actually give you more because he's accessed many more facilities for Treasure Beach in particular. My area is really mostly children and education, and we happened into this particular climate change project just because I was dealing with teachers and children who weren't used to having a lot of rain, basically. So, and given my background, I knew that this needed to happen. We become aware of facilities usually because we are a nonprofit organization. So we will get be on mailing lists, for example, or because we are interested, we will see them posted, whether on social media or we have colleagues. So Karen McDonald-Gill is a good friend of mine, and we will hear that this XYZ is available. For every grant, you have to meet the criteria. Every grant has different criteria. Some things that will be similar is they need a track record and they need proper accounts. So to prove that you can basically be good stewards of the money. Then you have to meet the criteria that they actually have a facility for at the time. You have to be prepared to wait. Sometimes it does not happen immediately, and sometimes your project is very urgent. So you have to frame your project in a way that it's something that can meet the time frame and the delays. If you are successful, so I know you asked about successful, but really it is the whole process. Monitoring a grant is a lot of work. So it is to meet the deliverables, to write the reports the way everybody wants things differently, is really an investment. So you have to have a team or people who have those skills, who are able to do the documentation and the reporting on time in formats as best as possible. The good thing about it is that you do develop a track record. So the more grants that you are able to prove that you have managed successfully, is the more that will help you to get facilities moving forward. Some of the challenges that organizations have is that they have not been incorporated for long enough. Sometimes you need a time period. Sometimes they don't have accounts that are of the standard that people need. Sometimes they don't have enough of a team structure, so they don't want most big facilities do not want a one-person operation. You have to have a bigger facility, and some facilities are not available to the private sector. They're available to nonprofit organizations. So having those partnerships with different organizations of different structures is helpful to access different types of facilities.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that overview. We do have another question in the panel from the participants. Has there been any indication in the tourism industry that travelers will not travel to resorts that do not use sustainable technology, or that will pay a premium to those taking action on climate change? Nellie, would you have any insight on that for us?
Yes, actually, thank you for that question, because that's something, there's a booking.com survey that came out earlier this year that shows that more and more travelers are interested in, one, not only going or booking with hotels that have sustainability programs in place, um, hotels with low carbon footprint, and also they're willing to pay a bit more money to book a hotel that is sustainable. So that the traveler attitude is changing, and it's definitely moving towards a more sustainable tourism industry. And so, in fact, when I heard Jason say earlier, talk about families or family of 6 traveling to the Americas from Europe, and the carbon footprint that's generated from that travel, we are in the process at Voyage, we are in the process of rebranding. We're going to have a consumer-facing website and a B2B website. So in our consumer-facing website, we will have a booking engine. And what's going to differentiate our booking engine from the Priceline.com, the Expedia.com, is the fact that our booking engine, in order to book with us, you will need to offset your carbon footprint as part of your booking. And that's a trend. Actually, we came up with the idea, we decided on that, and then the booking.com survey came out saying that travelers are actually looking to choose sustainable hotels during their booking, and also to offset their stay as they're booking. So that's something that's coming up, and I have to say, people in Europe are more advanced when it comes to sustainability. They're more willing to act and do things. We here I'm in the US, I can tell you it's still a bit of more talk than action, but it is something that's coming.
Excellent. And I think there was a question asking about the percentages. 81% of travelers say that they want to stay in a sustainable accommodation in the upcoming year, which is a notable increase from the previous surveys that have been done, where it was about 62% a few years ago or so. And it's been, going back and forth. But that's very good indication that people are concerned about what they do and how they do it and where they travel, and the reason why they travel is important, and sustainability is top of mind for them and for their agendas. As we're wrapping up, we have about 2 more minutes. I do just want to kind of summarize some of the ideas we kind of went through here. Thank you to all of our panelists for just your insights and your time. We appreciate you taking the time here. Thank you for our participants for being engaging. Again, panelists, please do make sure you put your information in the chat so anyone can connect with you if they have further questions. That would be wonderful. We know that we heard a lot of amazing insights from Carl at Jade Mountain and his many hats that he wears throughout St. Lucia and solid waste and with the FLHTA, and just how he's able to break down the complicated initiatives of sustainability to real world actionable things that can really produce and achieve results. Thank you, Carl, for that. That was wonderful. And just your insights on the supply chain management and how we all collectively as a group in the Caribbean need to put more focus on demanding what we need. And, our voices need to be heard in that instance, because that does contribute to our overall carbon footprint. We heard from Jason and Diaka on the amazing things that they're doing at Jake's in Treasure Beach, which is a gem. I've been there myself. I'm overdue for a visit, so I need to come visit you guys over there. And just the amazing things they're doing in the community, allowing or being able to certify a lot of the acreage, hundreds of acres for conservation, and just focusing on families as well in terms of making sure that they have interesting, sustainable opportunities to engage in as part of their hotel offering that they offer. And then Nelly with the climate change or the carbon footprint calculator that many of us are always looking for and looking to include. We wish you all best of luck. Nelly, I think it's going to be great that you're going to scale that up and look at those opportunities to kind of look at it from a community standpoint. We're all excited to see what's happening in that space. We're all getting kicked out right now. So thank you again. And we wish you all best of luck. Please do connect with us on the flip side. Take care.
Thank you.